Hi everyone, welcome to the series Let's Get Solving with Google Cloud. My name is Ajinkya Kolle, data engineering and machine learning instructor. And finally, it's a time for labs on machine learning. Okay, so like I said, as I always say, I'm a data engineering and machine learning instructor. So the machine learning part is here. So I love machine learning. One, it's fun, and its use cases are even more fun. So before I started learning machine learning, I started using that a long time back, before that. So for example, I read a lot of mangas, it's Japanese comics. Or there is a Chinese novels which are called as light novels called as wuxia or xintia. So it's a action kind of like novel. I read any lots of different types of things. So in that, what used to happen was I couldn't wait for a translation to get released, official translation, which is done by human. Okay. So in that, there is a concept called as machine translate, wherein kind of like a dictionary mapping. So a sentence in, let's say, Mandarin is taken, one word is taken, its English version is just put there. Next word, its English version is put there. Next word, its version is put there. Or in Japanese manga, or there, let's say if it is a Japanese light novel or something, it's the same thing. In Korean comics, it's called as manhwa or something. So whenever I was reading that, there is a version where it's not officially translated, it's called as raw. So I used to go to raw because they were latest, and I had to I mean I couldn't wait for the official translation come. So I used to use those translate tools of Google. Whenever I used to visit that raw page, it would be translated by using such things. Okay. So Google would translate that, or there was a other alternative which is light machine translate, which I mentioned before. It used to take word by word translation. So word by word translation is very chaotic. Whereas a neural network approach, which Google started doing in 2016 something. Okay. So in 2016, I noticed a amazing improvement in how the translation quality was being done. It is quite human accurate. Okay. So maybe let's see that. Okay. I'll show you when exactly that happened. So Google Neural Translate. So if you search this, this was okay. The paper was published back in 2016. So yes, Google AI box or blog. So you see in 2016, that's when this translation thing was actually launched. And you see the previous phrase-based translation, where instead of word, it was phrase-based. Before, the light machine translate is word-based translation. So the neural, becomes almost very close to human accuracy. And that is when I actually saw first time in action amazing improvement offered by neural networks, machine learning, deep learning. So as coincidentally, I started learning machine learning, deep learning at that time itself. So for me, even though I started learning it late, using it late, but for me, this AI field is not new. I mean, it actually fueled my love for anime or manga or wuxia or maba, whatever these may be. I kind of used it quite a lot. Okay. So this was kind of like the first foray into the power of machine learning. And it is just the beginning. So it has gone into so many different fields. It is so much powerful that we'll just, take a look at that. So today what we are going to see is we are going to see how to leverage the APIs we have built in Google Cloud. Okay. So for machine learning, I have painstakingly wore this t-shirt of TensorFlow. So TensorFlow library released back in 2015, which kind of like established, this was a library made for industry scale of machine learning, and it made machine learning very democratized. But TensorFlow is a library which kind of like makes machine learning easy, but not as easy as it can. Okay. So you see there are total three different ways of doing machine learning. First, use TensorFlow. Okay, so that's the first way. We use TensorFlow. So what happens is like we use the code, we use it to write our model. We store our data. Data could be stored in BigQuery. So we have our data into data warehouse. Our data kind of like is comes to the model using the data pipelines we have built using data flow. We saw that in last session. So we do that, and then TensorFlow reads that data, trains the model, and blah 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 blah. So it's like TensorFlow was a library for industry scale. If I want to do machine learning on, let's say, my data, it's going to be maybe in MBs, maybe in GBs at most. That's it. So, but when we have a data which is like at volume of companies, which are big companies, so it is at least in terabytes or petabytes. So if we want to do it at that level, we need a distributed library which can do automatic distribution, which can scale for large volume. That's why TensorFlow was created. So even though it makes things easier, but it's not very easy. Okay, going back to the translation problem. So translation problem is very common. When I had given a training in Japan, we had let's say in that Japan training, we had Korean customers, we had Japanese customers, and we had translators in the room translating what I was saying in English in their language. Okay, so I would say something, pause. Then they would translate, and then translated version would be heard by them. And then if they had a question, they would speak in their language. The translator would listen that. Then he would, he would tell that to me in English. I would answer in English. Then translator would translate it back to their language. So it was like Japanese translators doing their thing, Korean translator doing their thing. So, and that's how the training went. So you see, translation is a very common problem. When I had gone to anime district, Akihabara or something. So it's an anime district in Japan. When I went there and I was, talking to shopkeepers. So, I either use Google Translate app or they had a device which used to record what I said, translate that to Japanese for them. They would speak in Japanese, then that would be translated back to English. So they had a portable device or using Google Translate. So you see, there are few problems which are very common. If I want to do speech to text, it's a very common problem. So right now I have just enabled captions in Google Slides. The same feature is available on YouTube. So on YouTube, any video uploaded, it does not have subtitle manually uploaded. Okay, so maybe on sometimes on movies on Netflix or something, the subtitles which come there, those subtitles, they have actually been created to ensure maximum accuracy, human transcription. But it takes a lot of time. So we could have first pass done through machine learning. And if we improve it, make it more accurate, then we don't even need a human transcription. So on YouTube, many of the videos have been transcribed by using this API. So if you check whatever is happening is below, is almost a lot of things which I'm saying, it's very accurate transcription. So speech to text is happening at a very high accuracy. Now, wherever the accuracy is low, the reason is that it's a technical talk. It's not a, let's say when I say APIs, when I say AI, when I say stuff like this, there are a few keywords which most likely this API is not understanding, and that's why it is confused. So I could, start with translation problem or speech to text problem or optical character recognition problem. If I want to do it using TensorFlow, the t-shirt which I'm wearing, there is a lot of work which I have to do, and I'm reinventing the wheel because it's a very common problem. So like I said there are three ways of doing AI on Google Cloud. First, custom model using TensorFlow. My data, my model, lots of work, takes at least 2 years. Okay, but if it is common problems like this, anything of human sensors, speech, audio, video, text related stuff, these things are very common. Okay, so what we could do is we could actually let's say solve them, create a pre-built solution for them. We could create a pre-built solution for them using APIs. Okay, so let me show my screen, and on my screen currently this is a live API being shown. A live API is being shown to you where speech to text is happening live. I could improve the accuracy. This is ready-made API. Anybody could call it. It's not 100% accurate because it's happening live maybe, but if I kind of like optimize it for a specific use case of maybe Google Cloud training, so I could give it custom keywords. Okay, these are the keywords which are generally mistaken here. Take them as is and you will know how to transcribe them. So with help of that, this thing can be very accurate. So we are going to see here three ways of doing machine learning. When I said we have already done that, three ways. One, custom model. Second is the API. So extreme simplest is the using API, and then extreme hardest is using custom model. And somewhere down the line in the middle sits AutoML. So what we are going to see is we are actually going to see this. How do we leverage pre-built APIs in Google Cloud for machine learning? Okay. Remember, three things: custom model to APIs. APIs is pre-built, we simply call them, we simply use them. In custom model, I could either use TensorFlow or we could use, BigQuery ML. So BigQuery ML is the next section, which is going to be in which, it even makes machine learning a lot more easier than it was before back in 2016 when TensorFlow released. So a lot of things we had to, do ourselves, whereas in BigQuery ML, it's even easier. So machine learning is truly democratized now. The power of machine learning is amazing. Okay, things we can do are very fun and it's just mind blowing. Okay, so let's just see in this part, and which is the lab which we are going to do for machine learning. Let's just see that. Okay, so I'm sure you would have seen, if you had seen any of my previous session, Qwiklabs is a place where we are going to execute the labs. And how do we do that? Go to this link. It will redirect you to your lab. Open that lab, start that lab, end the lab, and what it will do is, like, after you create an account on that thing, it will give you 1 month free access to execute all of those things. Simply execute any kind of lab available on Qwiklab, and it is very, very good resource because you have ability to do practical. You see, in Hindi, I love this word called as padat murkha. Okay, so the word padat murkh is kind of like meaning of this is somebody who knows the theoretical knowledge but can't apply it realistically or practically. So kind of like I was a padat murkh in college where I knew lots of stuff, but when I started doing that, I wouldn't be able to do it perfectly, or sometimes because I wouldn't be able to do it at all. So there is a lot of knowledge which we only experience when we do stuff. So no matter how much you study how to swim outside the water, you won't be able to learn swimming unless you are inside the water. So there are two different kinds of learning. So please use this Qwiklab opportunity. You can take a lot of advantage here, and it will be very helpful to you. Okay. So you find a lab which you want to run, start the lab, copy paste the username and password, use them into Google Cloud to log in into Google Cloud Console in incognito window. That's very important. And you have to use that temporary username and password. Why? Because it takes care of the billing already. You don't have to worry about the billing part. It is taken care. Okay. So that's what we have. Okay. And the lab which we are going to do is it speaks. Okay. I'll explain why I have used the word it speaks that way. I could always say it speaks. Okay. So this is kind of like an analogy to Frankenstein is a researcher, and he creates a kind of like first zombie. So it's a classical novel, and in that he creates a monster from this whatever it is, like it's like resurrection and something like that. And when he starts speaking, and it's like through the lightning or something, it kind of like becomes alive, and then it speaks. So it's kind of like a horror novel or something, and that it speaks is kind of like indirectly like that. So it's funny. Okay. So we have this it speaks lab which we are going to do, and in this lab what we are going to see is actually apply machine learning in a problem statement which we are going to take, just convert text to speech. When I enable captions like this, I am doing speech to text. If I want to do text to speech, this is the lab. If I want to do something else, if I want to do vision, then I use vision API. If I want to do some video, I use video API. So there are lots and lots of different types of APIs which we simply have to understand based on the problem statement. Okay. So if we go to this thing, so there is this Google Books Ngram viewer. It kind of like simply gives plotting of how many times a pattern is kind of like used in all the available literature or something. Okay, in Google Books. So if I put in machine learning, so you see machine learning has had incremental things. So 1940, 1950 something, it has had upward trend. That when it was, term was coined, and we have kind of like growing it like this. And there was, it's been incrementally growing, and it has grown a lot because, it's been proven to be feasible. But if I go on Google Trends, okay, and I start worldwide trend from 2004 to present, the jump here was here. You see, it started going up since June 2016 or something. That's when TensorFlow and these libraries kind of like made. Back in 2012, that's when this was proven to be actually possible. So the turning point was 2012. Okay, since it was proven that machine learning is possible on scale. And then 2016, there was this flurry of libraries which kind of like made it possible. And there were lots of different use cases which were solved, and a huge interest was generated. So if I scroll down into Google Trends, the interest by region is highest in India. Interesting. It's the rising related topics are deep learning, data science, Coursera, R programming language. So, yeah, cool. Related queries and something like this. So this is the Google Trends. Quite interesting. Okay, so machine learning is quite a upwards trend, and it is very interesting, and it has solved really amazing things. So for example, on Google Books, there was this interesting product which is made, Talk to Books. Okay, so let's just say importance of emotional intelligence. Okay, let's say if I simply search that. So what this does is it can actually search from different books and find out related relevant stuff. So it's like a research guide. It could kind of like give you relevant passages according to EQ. It's not doing just string search, by the way. It can actually understand the stuff which are relevant to this, and it can give you the answers to this. So right now these are related stuff to this. But let's say I want to find out answer to this question. How high can people jump? Okay. And this question is asked and we get the answer. How amazing is that? Okay. If I copy this thing and let me put it here. Okay. So here, this snippet thing was also kind of like done by using machine learning, where this was identified, this kind of like stuff was identified as an answer, and it was kind of like provided here in the chat. Okay. Sorry, provided here in the upward parts of this thing. If you scroll down, okay, right now I don't know why I don't see that here, but I had seen the highlight feature. Okay, so let me see, Google search highlight answer. Maybe let me okay, so this was back in, I had seen this in experimentation, then I don't know why this kind of like went away. But here, so if I put in some search like this, it used to give me and directly highlight the stuff which was relevant answer to that search string which I did. How amazing is that? It's just mind-blowing. Okay, Google search was simply finding out relevant documents, then it was ranking the ones which are most relevant. Now, if you search something, the page which has the answer is highlighted. If you open that page, where is that answer is highlighted. If you go to Talk to Books, similar stuff, you get an answer. So now what has happened is Google search has become this genie. It could answer all your question. The only point remains is like if you ask the question. Now just, the things machine learning can do is just mind-blowing. And if we take a look at how far it has come, again mind-blowing. So it makes me feel like at a frontier of science. I mean, frontier of science is very exciting in all different fields, whether it is, let's say, genetics. CRISPR is a tech that laziness out of my DNA, kind of like editing my own code. So CRISPR can do that. So how, that's another frontier. So there are lots of exciting things, whether let's say quantum computing, or it is like, let's say, quantum physics. There are lots of things. But the thing which I also find very exciting is frontier of machine learning and stuff which makes it possible. Amazing. Amazing. So it's like, this is super cool. Okay. This is just mind-blowing. Okay. So we have, examples like this. So back in 1993, 1990, this is a demo of first optical character recognition. Okay. So what is happening here is, pressing that button, and this is actually detected. Let me just pause after the detection is done. You see, this is a printed digit, and it is actually getting recognized as the whatever corresponding digit it is. It's amazing. Okay, so OCR. This was the first kind of like system built kind of like to do OCR on US postal pin codes. It's like to help reduce the work of manual labor of manually sorting, is like using pin code thing. So 100 digits, that could be done OCR. Okay, CAPTCHA system was actually based on that. So CAPTCHA sometime back was very easy because it was very difficult for a machine to recognize those CAPTCHAs. Now computer systems can take that, and that's why the CAPTCHAs are becoming more and more complex. So this was the OCR back in 1993. And when products like this cam scanner, I used to use that a lot. So cam scanner or visiting card scanner, scanner visiting card, it used to be converted digitally. How? That feature was kind of like very easy to implement now with help of AI. It's very easy. Okay. So if I go to this thing, let me go to my Twitter and let me just, take a screenshot or something. I think I've already taken a screenshot. So let me upload that screenshot in my Google Keep. Okay. So one of the latest screenshots I did was, on learning. So this person, he's a writer of library Keras, which makes deep learning very easy. So amazing tweet, talks about, understanding, how to learning should be done and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I have uploaded this image. Okay. Now, if I right click here and you see there's this feature, grab image text. This is OCR, instantaneous at an extremely large scale. OCR can happen on all Google Photos, not just OCR. I could search for objects if I want to search for books. So let me just simply do Google Photos, and now my fingers are crossed. Okay, let me just change to my webcam so that let me see if there aren't any embarrassing photos of me on the Google Photos. So if there aren't, then I'll kind of like, okay, so there aren't any embarrassing photos. So let me go back towards my screen. So these are kind of like stuff here. So there is this embarrassing photo. So experimentation workstation, this is my hack. So this is the monitor I have, and this has been put on a bucket. Okay. So let me just search. If I search bucket, can Google Photos identify which photo has the bucket and return that? Okay. Now my Google Trip thing, so it has mistakenly classified this jug as bucket. So okay, this was not a very successful thing, but maybe I could do books. I love books. Okay, so this has kind of like identified the photos of books and some of the screenshots. That's my library here. So, and right now it is expanded at least, by 50%. So this is kind of like my library of books, and it identified. So this can not only return the images which are relevant to the books, but it could also grab OCR text and some more details here. And here also this image was taken. So why was this returned? Because you see on the right hand side, there is this thing called as 3 books to 2025. So you see, this is kind of like a OCR thing being happening on scale. It is present in Google Photos, it is present in Google Keep. I could kind of like delete this OCR, close this thing, and let me search this. Only meta remains. I remember remains. Okay, so this, if I simply put even meta, this thing is meta remain. Okay, you see only meta remains is kind of like this thing kind of like is returned. So this is doing search inside the image. Google search can do search inside text. It's easy. Now eventually we are going to have search inside images, inside audio, inside video, and that's where stuff is going on. It's just amazing. We have this Descript product, which is kind of like you can do audio editing like by doing text editing. So I have this Descript installed here. I had kind of like wanted, there are few lectures on meditation. I simply uploaded them here, and after uploading them, I simply want, this is doing speech API or something. It has done, it has converted text, audio to text here. I want to delete this part. I could kind of like delete it from here. Okay. If I want to, let's say, create a new composition, which is, let's just say test, and I want to copy paste something from here. So I want to copy this part. So I've copied it here, and test here, I'm simply pasting it. Okay, so you see, I could actually copy paste stuff from here. So this was one lecture, begin again. So this is audio. I could kind of like copy different paste stuff, paste it here, and you see this is a product which is using AI, using APIs. That's why APIs are amazing. Okay, APIs can make stuff just easy. I had given this interview, and that interview recording is here. So you see the bottom right part. So in that, multiple speakers were identified. That multiple speakers is actually part of API of Google Cloud. So if you search in Google Cloud APIs, we have stuff language API, we have translation API, We have speech to text API, text to speech API. And in that text to speech, speech to text, we have speaker identification, multiple language at the same time, stuff like this. So you see, ML is amazing. Okay, there are so much exciting stuff here. It's just kind of like mind blowing. Okay, so here we have this thing and okay, this thing. Okay, I'm not gonna close this. This is the interesting stuff. Let me just bookmark it so that I remember to use it next time. And you see, this is what we kind of like have, power of AIs and APIs and stuff something. And going back to this, it speaks. We are simply actually calling the API and we are simply using it in this situation. Okay, so let's just start doing this lab. I'm not going to log into Qwiklab. I'm simply going to log into my Google Cloud Console so that we don't spend time in setting up and logging in and blah blah blah. Okay, so what it is doing speech, text to speech. On this text to speech API, there is this Wavenet thing. Okay, so if you go to Google Maps and you do let's say I wanna go somewhere else. Some time back, the voice was quite robotic. We have this Wavenet, AI stuff done wherein the voice is no longer as robotic as it was before. Okay, so in US English, I don't know whether this will be heard or not. Let's just try. I don't think this is being heard. So maybe you can simply search Wavenet yourself and try it out. Try listening. Difference between how does it sound for US parametric and how does it sound for Wavenet. Okay. So this is what is actually used in kind of like Google Assistant now. There are some celebrity voices. I had seen a news where voice of Nick Fury / Samuel Jackson was kind of like being used, but that voice was not actually created by AI, but it can be done. So there is this thing company called as Lyrebird where it's kind of like this thing. So Joe Rogan, kind of like a podcaster, his voice was created from the recordings which are available online using AI like stuff. So this Lyrebird is what you can do, that you can actually train this thing, this AI with your voice. And if you want to do podcast editing, so remember the Descript software. In the Descript software, if you want to edit a podcast where we did a mistake of speaking something wrong, we can do overdubbing and we can simply edit text and it will create the audio of that text in our voice. How amazing is that? Right? Just mind blowing. I mean, stuff it can think of, stuff it can do, just mind blowing. So it's really powerful. It is really fun in field of AI, in field of anime, in field of movies, in field of action movies, in field of dance, in field of singing. The possibilities are endless, and that's why I find it exciting. And as you can notice, I'm finding it hard to focus on just one thing which we are supposed to do, which is the lab. Let me just go back to the lab now. Okay, going back to it speaks. I mean, it's ideally we are done with the time. I should have finished, started this thing sooner, but okay, it's fine. We should be fine. So if we take a look at here, it's like we have to go to console, search for this APIs, cloud text to speech API. Okay, so we have to search. We can search that in search bar. So I have put in that search bar in my cloud console. It redirects me to the API, and many a times we actually need to enable the APIs we need to use. Okay, I've already enabled them. That's why it has been enabled. We can monitor how many times it is being called, what's the pricing of this thing, and blah 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 blah. And this lab kind of like walks us through this, like, okay, let's kind of like create a environment through which we are going to call this. So we install this virtual environment in this thing. So all these things. Okay, so let me just activate Cloud Shell. So what's happening here is we are actually enabling API. After we enable the API, we simply make sure that I am setting up my account, my kind of like a identity of the service. Okay, there is this concept called a service account. In simple words, it is nothing but a identity of the service I'm using. Okay, so let me just do one thing. Check it out. So let's just set up the virtual environment. Then we have to create this Python 3 environment. Ooh, I should have done and. That would have been much better. Okay. Virtual environment creation. Then virtual environment creation is done. Then this thing, enter. I've created Python 3. So we create a service account. So this service account, we add it, as an exception, and this exception thing is what will be used. So create an account, this is the kind of like procedure we can follow. Okay. Now I need to execute kind of like this thing, and it is saying what is my project ID. We need to use that, and I know my project ID is this thing, mystical glass, blah blah blah. So I'm simply copy pasting it from here, and let's just kind of like paste rest of the stuff. And this creates that service account and adds it, creates the security keys. These keys is what we will use to call the API. If we don't create keys, right, how do we take care of billing? So it's like we don't want to expose our keys publicly, because it might lead to many people unnecessary calling this thing, and we get the bill. So this is the kind of like process: create a service account, configure it as an exception, then kind of like create the key, use that key to call this thing, and this is where we actually start doing the work. Okay, so what are the available voices? So here we have available voices, it kind of like given in that Qwiklabs thing. Okay, so what available voices we have? We have Arabic, we have this thing. Now, there are lots of supported languages, by the way. Yeah. Okay, so if you scroll down, as you can see, there are lots and lots and lots of languages. If you want, I had actually created this this thing, doing some text parsing, and I had kind of like given some stats here. Okay, so let me just open some stats and tell you about those stats, so that we can kind of like talk about those stats. Okay, so the stats are like this. Oops. So we have how many? We have around 70 individual languages, and in each languages we have, I think, different what do we call them? Different accents? Not accents really. Versions of language? Not really. I mean, I don't know. We have English which is American, we have English which is British, we have Indian English. I don't know what it is called. So for Arabic we have 30, for English we have 33, for Finnish we have 2, for French we have 4. Not accents. I mean, I don't know what they are. For Spanish we have 42. Wow, that's amazing. 42. So you see, we have how many? 70 languages with so many different things. So for speech to text, we have these many things. We just, choose according to one we have. There are lots of features, features like this. How many kind of like, if there are multiple languages, even those are supported. How do I do that? And blah, 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 blah. So kind of like we get details like this. We choose, what problem we want to solve and how do we want to solve it. And for that specific problem, we choose the corresponding setting. Okay. So we do this thing, and this is the first step where we are actually synthesizing the text. Okay, so we are saying, okay, this thing, and I'm going to copy paste this thing here. So this is this thing. Okay, so let's create a synthesized text JSON file. By executing this touch, I create that file. I'm saying vim synthesize touch, and in this vim synthesize touch, I'm copy pasting this text. So let's just say insert, do this, exit. So vim synthesize. Why is this so red and weird? So maybe cat synthesis. And so when we do cat synthesis, this thing was fine. So cat synthesis, this was text was fine. So this is nothing but syntax highlighting. Okay, so that way it's fine. We are fine. Okay, so the synthesis thing is done. Now this is the text which we are going to convert into audio. What are the available voices? We had seen that here. Okay, so if we scroll down, if we scroll up, okay, and if we simply this was the thing, right? This is where we saw available voices. So we could choose, pick, oh, which language, who is the voice, do I want to choose, how's the sample. Right now we don't have, let's say, voices available in format of celebrities, but sure, I mean, it's like no big deal, right? So we can simply choose that and combine that with whatever we want, and based on the syntax, based on the context, we pick and choose. So there are lots of APIs. APIs, like I said before, pre-implemented solutions which are very common. We use them so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Reinventing the wheel is a waste of time. As a programmer, we have to focus our efforts on something which gives me better returns. So whether it is, text to speech or speech to text or image search, it's part of eBay, it's part of Evernote, it's part of this Descript. All of these things, many companies use ready-made APIs so that they can focus their manpower on other products, which problems they could solve. So there is no point in reinventing the wheel, and even if you do, it will not be as accurate as Google engineers have spent the time making this as accurate as this. So we don't need to do this, and we can't even do it this well. I mean, there are few companies which might give you a better accuracy by doing it themselves, but it will take an amount of time and efforts it will take to reach that is going to be, I don't know whether worth the ROI or not. Okay, so that's what we are doing here. So here in the it speaks part, we choose the voice, we kind of like, then we simply call our this thing. So you see, we are actually calling our API with the text file as an input, and then we are going to get our, then we are going to get our this thing, which is text getting converted to audio. So let's just call that here. Wait, did this happen? What has happened? Code something bearer, access token, content type, application JSON, char set, something, voices. Okay. Oh, sorry. This was not the upload code. This was simply this thing, synthesis thing which we have created. Okay, this is the kind of like call. This call, it gives you synthesis keys. It also gives users access token and gives the text file. Okay, let's copy paste this and execute this here. So the synthesis, what's happening here? Okay, we have created this file. This file, synthesis text.json, gets uploaded. So does the access token. It returns the output in this text format. Okay. Now this text format has to be converted into kind of like audio content, and we do that by using this kind of like code. I mean, these things are easily done. We don't have to reinvent it from scratch. But let's just kind of like host it and simply decode it as an MP3 file. Okay, so this is the code, tts decode.py. Let's just see this thing. So touch tts decode.py, vim tts decode.py, copy paste the code. This is the Python file, and I am going to call this thing here. So the MP3 file gets created. Wait, what? Okay, it's tts _decode. So let me just go to the home screen here. TTS decode. So now ls minus lrt. Oops, what has happened? Wait, I don't know. This thing. Okay. Okay, ls minus lrt, and you see synthesis.audio mp3 file is generated. So now whatever text we give and whatever configuration we kind of like got it, and we got this as mp3 file. So you can do this, and this is simply asking you how to create a HTML file so that we can access this, or I don't know whether we can download it from here. Is there any option, terminal, this thing, download? Not really. So it's like, yeah, you have to create it, make it available as this thing. Oh, download a file option is there. So file path is, this is my mp3 thing, download a file, download, no such file, download a file, home screen dot this thing. Download. Okay, maybe we need to do pwd and give the exact this thing. Okay, so the home screen is this entire path. So I'm going to download this, and then, ooh, I should have saved the file thing. So what was the file? Oh, I remember, it's here. So the file output is synthesize this thing dot mp3. Copy paste it here, download, and yeah, successful. Okay, I don't think whether you'll be able to hear it or not, but let's just hope.
The text-to-speech API converts text or speech synthesis markup language (SSML) input into audio data like MP3 or LINEAR16, the encoding used in WAV files.
So as you see, this was, if I think you might have heard that because I played it through speaker and microphone would have caught that. So it's still not real sounding, but because you are comparing that with how real sounding humans are. But compare that to AI, this thing is insane. Okay, this thing is literally insane in terms of the technical capabilities it has achieved. Previously, it would have been so robotic. In few years of improvement, this is going to be very realistic sounding. And I'll show you. Okay, right now, there is this website called as This Person Does Not Exist. Every time you visit this page, it will actually upload an image. This image is not real. This is generated by an AI system. This started in the beginning as not that great. So if I simply search GAN progress, this will kind of like point you to a tweet which simply gives you the progress of how these generative adversarial networks were good in terms of this accuracy. So let me just open this image in new tab. Back in 2014, this is what we had. Back in now 2018, this is what we have. This is now 2020. So things are improving. Right now we have an option of actually tweaking. I can kind of like simply tweak how to create an image. So it's not generated randomly. So let me just GAN GitHub latent. Oh yes, not this one, not this one. I remember it's this one. So you see here we have this. Wait, yeah, this one. Yes, you see we have stuff here like this. Okay, here what's happening, let me zoom in a bit. An image is generated where you have this configuration. You can see, okay, I like this person, let's make some changes there. Let's make it look more hair, less beard, more blonde hair, and something. Over time we should be able to give emotions, configuration, stuff like this. Imagine how far we have come. That's the thing about technology, evolution. Evolution takes, let's say, tens of thousands of years to grow in just one direction. Evolution goes through, just, random stuff, mistake. It's a evolution which is slow evolution, whereas technology evolution is intentional. It is slow if you look at it in years, but eventually the changes add up so much that the things which get created is mind-blowing. So AI is that. Okay, right now the APIs which are available, they are amazing. They will become even more amazing. So you just pick and choose what you want and how you want to use it and stuff like this. So that was what we had for today. Stay tuned for next session. We are going to talk about BigQuery ML. Okay, how to use BigQuery ML in an easy to use way to do machine learning for a kind of like tabular kind of like data. So stay tuned and thanks for listening for this session. Thank you.